right, I think we are live. It is now 7 o'clock and we are going to be diving into learning about Kandinsky. Wassily Kandinsky. It's spelled with a W, but it's Russian, so it's pronounced with a V. Anyways, I'm Joanna Hill with J Hill Fine Art. I'm a freelance artist and art teacher. And I'm just going to share some fun facts about Kandinsky, one of my favorite artists. And I just want to kind of play around with doing something different. So if you know my work, I do a lot of realistic artwork and a lot of still life. Not that that is wrong, but I just kind of want to branch out a little bit and maybe do something a little different and teach myself something a little different. So I never took art history, never went to art school. So art history is something that I've always been interested in, and I don't really know a lot about a lot of classical artists. So Kandinsky being one of my favorites, I kind of got a chance to dive into doing some research about him, and I'm very excited to just kind of share what I have found. Now, I am no historian, so if any of these facts or things that I'm sharing tonight happen to be incorrect, please let me know in the comments. I'm not saying that I am correct or whatnot, but maybe I have linked sources to where I got this information in the description below, so you can check those out. So I'll just kind of go throughout the video and share little bits here and there as we work. So anyways, who is Kandinsky? Kandinsky is an artist. He's a Russian artist. He was born in Moscow and in Russia on December 16th. He is credited as the father of abstract art. So there were other abstract artists during his time, so he is not the one who invented it. He definitely is just probably the most prominent artist and one of the greatest artists that really coined that term, abstract and non-objective. So anyways, as I was kind of looking through my stuff, I just happened to find this little art sticker book. So you might be able to kind of recognize, some of his work. He does a lot of non-objective abstract art. So we'll talk about both of those terms today. This one right here, which was the thumbnail for the video, is my favorite painting, composition number 8. I really love that painting. So anyways, he primarily used oil paints, he used gouache paints, he used watercolor. I'm not sure what other things he might have used. He was a very accomplished artist. So I'm actually just going to read from my notes here because I'm not going to be able to memorize what exactly I have read here. Okay, so he was born December 16th, 1866. He was the son of a tea merchant. His parents were very well-to-do. After they ended up getting divorced at his age of 5 years old, and he ended up moving to Odessa to live with his aunt. And around the time when he was growing up, his aunt had given him violin lessons, private lessons, so he was a very educated man, and he was also a very gifted boy. At the age of 9, he had mastered the violin, and more interestingly, with his art, he could actually hear and see sounds in the colors. He mentions that when he would mix the paint colors, he would hear them hiss. So what that means is Kandinsky had what was called synesthesia. I still cannot pronounce that word. And it is actually a disorder where when one sense is activated, another one is also activated. So he could hear colors and see sounds. There's actually a lot of people that are musically inclined who have this gift. So just to name a few, Billy Joel was one. Marilyn Monroe has that gift. Jimi Hendrix. So look it up. It's very fascinating. But anyways, he had this gift of being able to see his colors as sound, and that really propelled his art career. So he has a quote: "Color is the keyboard, the eyes are the harmonies, the soul is the piano with many strings. The artist is the hand that plays, touching one key or another to cause vibrations in the soul." I thought that was very interesting. So anyways, fast forward 1892. Kandinsky goes to college to become a lawyer and also a professor of lawyering. I'm not sure what the term of that would be. But during this time, he was also continuing with his work his artwork on the side. And at this stage of his style of artwork, he was classically trained to paint what he saw accurately. So he was doing very realistic styles. That was also a time about the Impressionists, so like Monet. I don't know what other kind of Impressionists are there. I didn't do a lot of homework in that era. But anyways, he was doing a lot of those just traditional still life type artwork. A lot of what I do. So anyways, I will show you some pictures of his early work. I'm going to share my screen here and get to this picture. Now, his earlier work was what they call they call it impressionistic, because it's not completely realistic. It is sort of a form of abstract, but not quite the non-objective that we're used to. Okay, there we go. So this one is called Murnau Train. Murnau was the place where he was at in 1909 when he painted this. So you can actually see that it is a train. You can see the subject matter. You can see buildings in the background. So this is still abstract, but it's not non-objective. So he was still sort of holding on to those traditional styles of art. I've got one more for you. And there's this one too. I don't know what these were painted with as far as the medium, but probably, I have no idea. It looks like it's on some sort of canvas, probably oil. So those were two pictures from his earlier works there. Let me get back to my screen. There we go. Okay, so moving forward. So he starts to do his more abstract work in 1895. Kandinsky sees Monet's Haystack series, and that is what inspired him to really become a loose painter. This is what inspired Kandinsky to break away from the traditional painting styles. He was so moved that he quit his profession as a lawyer and pursued a career as an artist. His wife Anna at the time did not approve, and she actually divorced him. 1896. Kandinsky moves to Munich to study modernism, where the type of thing was becoming more popular. He attended Anton Osby's studio, which was he was a prestigious artist, and he gave him private art lessons. He was introduced to using line and form. So we see that a lot in Kandinsky's work. Let me show you some other examples of his work. So here is some abstractions of dancing figures. You can see his use of line, not really quite form because there's no shading. This is just a simplification of these dancers in the form of a line. Here's another example. I just love these. I came across these actually on Pinterest, and they are from one of Kandinsky's books that he wrote. I don't know which one, but I just think they're absolutely fascinating. There they are together. So line, form, shapes, has a lot of these in his pictures. And go back to another one here. Here's another one of his earlier ones from 1911. This one's kind of crazy. I don't like it as much as his other ones because it's more messy. I really like his clean work, but quite abstract, quite non-objective. I don't see a subject matter. Okay, so he was introduced to using line and form in his artwork. He went on to attend Munich Academy of Fine Arts, where he not only taught art lessons, but he experimented with art theories and started to include emotion and spirituality into his artwork. He approached his art with emotion through his color palette rather than the subject matter, as we see in some of these. I just love, it's so colorful. I love the shapes. I love the lines. I love the backgrounds. It's very funky. But he was so musically inclined, and he really pushed, or he was really inspired by music, because when he painted or he listened to music, he could see the colors, he could see the shapes, he could hear the music of the colors themselves. And really, he's painting symphonies. Can you imagine all of this going off in your brain as you're just trying to sit down and do some painting for the day? It's really quite impressive. Although they probably thought he was absolutely nuts. This one right here, going back to this one, the circles, this one's from 1926. This is actually, most of his paintings were huge. I've never actually seen one in real life, but I've, seen pictures of them hung in the museums, and they're huge paintings. But anyways, the one with the circles is probably one of my favorites too. So anyways, that is during 1896, where he starts to really implement his artwork using emotion and music. So during that time, he met Gabriele Munter, and together they traveled Europe and ended up in Murnau, southern Germany, from the years 1909 to 1910. Kandinsky develops more abstraction in his work while expressing himself with colors and shapes influenced by music. He forms a group called the Blue Rider that consisted of himself, Gabriele Munter, Franz Marc, and August Mega. In this group, they talked about how they would influence the art community, art theories, and explored more non-traditional art ideas. In 1912, he wrote his first book concerning the spiritual in art. In 1913, he paints Composition 7, his largest painting, in only 4 days. Preceding this, he would have done numerous sketches in watercolor and oil to prepare the design. So on my Facebook page, I linked a picture, or not a picture, it was a YouTube video of a short film of Kandinsky himself doing some painting on camera. So he was, I guess you could say, he was the first art YouTuber. But anyways, if you haven't seen it, go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/jhillfineart, and go check out that video. It's only like a few minutes long, but it's just really cool to just be able to see him and be able to see him work. But anyways, apparently he would do numerous paintings and drawings and studies before he would actually make these large abstract paintings. So you would think to look at them that he did them on a whim, just kind of all willy-nilly, but he really didn't. He actually planned all of them, which is pretty amazing. So fast forward 1914 to 1921. At the start of World War I, he returned to Russia and he taught more art classes there. In 1922, he joins the Bauhaus in Germany, where he also taught. The Bauhaus was founded by Walter Gropius, in 1919. It was the home of the avant-garde movement. They were a collaboration of artists using all forms of arts and crafts like pottery and, oh my gosh, the word just escaped me, like yarn art, fabric art, anything that was artistic and crafty. They all came together to share ideas and did a lot of art and design. They designed furniture, all sorts of crazy stuff. You should look it up. So anyways, their ideas were so revolutionary that in 1933, the Bauhaus was shut down by the Nazis as their ideals didn't match their socialistic views of the Nazi Party. So they were sort of all considered, they called it degenerate art because they didn't match the new norm. Anyways, after that, Kandinsky moved to Paris, where he would become a French citizen, and he would live out his life there. And because of his artwork being called degenerate art by the Nazis, he did not actually sell much artwork anymore after that, which is terribly sad, and he fell into a deep depression. On December 14th, 1944, he died. Don't know how he died, but that's when he died. So anyways, in a nutshell, that is his life. There is so much more interesting facts about him and about all of those details. A lot of the articles I was reading went into a lot more detail about him and about what he did during that time, or different times of his life. So anyways, my idea for today is to kind of create a piece of artwork that kind of goes along with what Kandinsky wanted to do with his art. So he was portraying emotion and music, and he wasn't stuck in a box. He wanted to break free of the traditional styles of art. So doing abstract art is not exactly my my strong suit. I've always enjoyed looking at it. I don't really get it, I'll be honest, but after doing some research about Kandinsky, it's really sort of inspired me. So the other day, I'm going to share this with you. I actually tried to kind of do some little sketches. So here's one. This is my sketchbook that I stick in my purse sometimes, and I just kind of doodle when I'm just sitting somewhere. So I call them my church notes because I can't pay attention during the sermon if I can't keep my hands busy. So these are my church notes. So anyways, here's one that I did. It was a soda can. This one was sitting on my coffee table, and I wanted to sort of make it a little more abstract. So not quite the non-objective of Kandinsky's later works, but I have a hard time doing non-objective work because I love still life so much, so I like to see a subject matter. This is going to be an interesting little challenge today. So I also decided to try and do my dog Pebbles, and I turned her into a Kandinsky picture. Not sure how well I achieved this, but it was a lot of fun just kind of playing with it. And I used micron pens and some watercolor and some gouache. And then this one on this side is my brother's cat, Stubbs, who does not have a tail. He's got this little tiny stub, which hence his name. But anyway, so I had a picture of him in my phone from my last family visit, and I decided to make his portrait into a Kandinsky-esque style. So I think we are going to just do some warm-ups. I want to bring up that other picture of the dancers. Let's see if I can share my screen here. There we go. So I want to bring up this sort of idea because it still gives me some sort of idea of a subject matter that I can kind of just warm up with. So keep this in mind and pick something random on your desk. So I'm just going to grab a pencil doesn't matter. I've got some sketchbook paper, and I'm going to just, let's see, what could I draw that is in my studio here? I'm going to draw my PS4 controller. So I know that sounds very silly. Doesn't matter. The idea is to simplify the object into lines. So here's my subject matter. I'm just going to set it off to the side where I can see it. And I'm just going to think about some abstract lines, forms. Really, we're focusing on line of movement. So line of movement is the line of energy going through something. So these dancers, you can see up to the upper left, and you can see this just powerful, straight, strong line that Kandinsky used to achieve that feeling of energy being pushed up that way. But that's the lines of movement. And the one over here, you can see, I mean, they're almost kind of like stick figures in a way, just a lot more stylized. Okay, so I'm gonna give it my best go. We're just gonna do a warm up because I'm not sure how this is going to go. So, the line of movement of a PS4 controller. I'm just wanting to stay loose. I'm kind of playing with my pencil strokes too, because I want it to look creative. Playing with the idea of thin and thick lines. So we've got the D-pad over here with the directional buttons. It's still looking a little bit too realistic, maybe not abstract enough. So I want to study maybe adding some elements. I know he did a lot of like these kind of little checkered patterns, like, I don't know if you can see, there are a lot of like checkerboards and stuff. A lot of triangles, lines. And I'm assuming that they all really represent something, you know, in his mind. What they represented, I'm not entirely sure. This looks absolutely ridiculous. All right, maybe I try something different now. It's all right, we're just warming up. So this is just kind of the purpose of a warm up. Let's do a tube of paint. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I'm not paying attention to the chat. I don't know if any of you are asking questions. I apologize if I miss them because I'm totally not paying attention right now. I'm going to move this off to the side. Okay. Tube of paint. We have one tube of gouache paint. Let's set that aside. All right, line of movement. Think abstract. actually came out kind of cool. You know what else I have? I've got this really cool little chisel thing. We can definitely play with that. So if you're sitting here playing along, I hope you share what it is that you are trying to abstract in your sketchbook. This is actually a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. But it is kind of fun. It really makes you think outside the box, that's for sure. That's kind of neat. Let's see, what else can we warm up with? How about a blender brush? What could we do with this? Now, I guess we're supposed to be getting in touch with our emotions. I don't have any music playing currently, but I actually have my headphones ready because I'm going to implement that when we do something a little bit more finished. So you may want to grab your headphones. I can't play music in the live stream because of YouTube, but I am going to have some music playing in my ears so I can be influenced by the music and see where that takes me. Okay, so fluffy brush. I read in another article about the shapes he used and how he associated them with specific colors. I don't know if that's entirely true, and I didn't bother to write them down because I didn't see any other sources mentioning that. But like triangles would mean something specific, squares would mean something specific, and the colors of them, and he would use colors that would fight together to give a lot of tension. That is probably true. One of the things that I had read was he had listened to Wagner's one of his operas, and that was the painting that he did in like 4 days. Was after listening to an opera. So if he's got that synesthesia thing going on and he's hearing a symphony or, something like Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner, like, can you imagine what that looks like in your mind? That's just nuts to me. This looks like a lollipop. Not quite a paintbrush, but I kind of like it. I can definitely see that being colored and, you know, something kind of wild. Let's kind of roll with this one. I'm going to blend it a little bit. I'm going to grab a blending stump and just kind of play with it a little bit more. I do have a couple reference photos that I'll put on the screen that we will play with. A lot of his like circles I've noticed have kind of like an aura around them. There was another quote that he mentioned that I thought was kind of cool. It was, the deeper the blue becomes, the more strongly it calls man towards the infinite, awakening in him a desire for the pure and finally for the supernatural. The brighter it becomes, the more it loses its sound until it turns into silent stillness and becomes white. That's an interesting quote, I thought. I have a list of, if you go to the Wassily Kandinsky website, I think it's just his name.net. They have a whole list of some quotes and just some little biographies about people in his life and about him, and they also have a nice little online gallery of some of his works. So it's very interesting to go check that out. So here's another one. An empty canvas is a living wonder, far lovelier than certain pictures. There's a ton of quotes on there. Anyways, he seemed like a very interesting man. I guess he was a very educated man and just a very, I guess he was very spiritual. I still haven't quite discovered what exactly was his spiritual idea, or what was spiritual about his artwork, because I didn't read anything that he was of any particular religion, so I don't know. But a lot of his quotes will sometimes mention like the cosmos, so maybe he was into some supernatural stuff. I have no idea, no clue. I really like this though. This is like glorified doodling. So I'm trying to stay inspired by my subject and the subject's color, and we're going to throw some music in also. Well, I think we have sufficiently warmed up. Let's move on to something else. All right, I'm going to bring up a reference photo, and we are going to, there we go, just a paint palette. Something that I can relate to. Color, paint, it's messy, it's bright, cheery. There's some clean lines as far as the structure. So this is a picture that I found off Unsplash, and I liked it. I thought it was very, very me. I'm going to put my tube of paint back. So what we'll do is I'm going to paint this. I'm going to draw it out first, and let's do a little thumbnail of this because I'm not sure how I want my composition to be. We could just wing it and then paint it, which I'm very tempted to do. I do enjoy winging things. So I'm going to turn my earbud on here. Don't worry, I'll still be able to hear myself talking. I was going to say hear you talking, but I should get some guest speakers on here. That would be interesting. All right, so here's where I encourage you to turn your favorite music on and do something, find a reference photo. You can use this one right here. I unfortunately don't have any downloadables on my website this time, but unsplash.com, pixabay.com, those are great websites to find, copyright free music. And I don't know why, but my music program is not actually working. There it goes. Find something upbeat. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. Okay, now that I've got that going in my ear, I've got my reference photo off to the side here as well. I may not even like this particular composition, but that's why we're doing just a thumbnail. You know, what's really interesting is with that whole synesthesia, I cannot pronounce that word, Van Gogh was also one of those kinds of people. And he actually was kind of a little bit of a crazy person, if you ever look him up. But I was sharing some fun facts about him at our paint and sip this past Sunday. And it's interesting because he used a lot of really bright colors just like Kandinsky did. Yeah, I already hate this. I'm going to keep going. Keep working it. Thinking about all the color stains on the top portion of that paint palette. Yeah, this is pretty terrible. Next. All right, we'll give it one more go. Let's try something a little different. I'm trying to think what would be my emotion as a paint palette. It's just one thing I don't really get about abstract, non-objective art. I am trying to sort of go for non-objective. I just want to be inspired by the shapes. Maybe I'm thinking about a paint palette with sort of a thumb hole. Let's see. What kind of elements can I pull into this? It's got a lot of arcing shapes, repetition, triangles, basic shapes, right up my alley. I kind of like where this is going. Let's see. Turn this one into a much bolder line here. That's kind of a neat composition. I might change the C curve because I think I kind of want it to feel a little more exposed on the outside. So I'm going to put this aside and we're going to paint on watercolor paper. And I think the fun part is going to be implementing color. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to put my sketchbook somewhere where I can see it. There we go. And I'm going to use an eraser because I want light lines. I'm going to just kind of follow along what I just did. I'm not going to use bold lines with the pencil. I just want thin lines here. And I do have my ruler. Oh, I hear thunder. We've been getting a lot of storms lately. I do want to keep sort of this rectangle repetitive shape because this is my abstraction of a paint palette. And I want to add some arcing curves to it. I think these are going to represent paint splatters. This is kind of fun. I actually really am enjoying this. Okay, before it gets too overworked, I'm going to go over this with some pen, micron pen. This is a size number 1. This is actually sort of a felt tip. It's a little too big for what I want. I don't want the brush tip. I want not that one. Kind of looking for a bold, thick line. I guess number 2 will suffice. Now, because I am very into nice, clean lines, I'm okay with adding my own flavor to this. Does not have to be completely squared, but I do want some clean lines. Let's see. Isn't there like a movie? Was it, oh my gosh. Double Jeopardy, I think, was the movie where they, some of Kandinsky's paintings were in the antagonist's private art collection. I can't remember the full story of the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember them talking about the Blue Rider period. So if you have never used gouache paint, which is what I'm going to be using now, or in a minute, It is an opaque watercolor. I think Kandinsky primarily used oil paint and water and like traditional watercolors, but I did read somewhere that he had used gouache as well. And that sounds good enough for me because I don't really like to use watercolor. But I want to try and capture it in something that he might have used. I don't think I'm going to outline all these circles because I don't want black outlines for all of them. Now what I did something with Pebbles Paul that I really liked the shape of. I kind of liked how I did this. I might try and use those same shapes again. I'm gonna grab a French curve so I can try and get this angle. If you are not familiar with what a French curve is, it is a glorified ruler for curves. They come in different sizes and they're pretty handy, I'm not gonna lie. You just kind of move them around until you get the right angle, or the right curvature, I should say. I'm gonna block the camera with my head here for a second. Let's take a look at that pattern I did. It's sort of like a little bee shapes. Let's see. I'm going to do another matching arch on this side. I'm going to get out the bigger this one. Now I'm just messing with the widths. Oop, it kind of bled a little bit, but maybe we'll do that after we paint it. All right, so I'm gonna take my kneaded eraser and I'm gonna clean up my lines. I'm just gonna kind of blot the smudge marks. Micron pen dries pretty fast and it's also waterproof, which is why I love using it with watercolor and gouache. You do want to try and keep your surface clean. I am a stickler for cleanliness in your work, especially with my students. I will ding them if they do not have good craftsmanship. All right. Now let's play around with some colors. So the inspiration was this paint palette, which is pretty much all rainbow, but I want to pull some inspiration from some of my favorite pictures. So here's the circle one again. I really love the dark of the deep blue, violet, indigo, you know, all those and it makes all the colors pop. But I also really love this one, which is just, I don't know, they're two completely different. Like, I'm not sure how I would harmonize both of them together, but I think I'm gonna go with the other one because I really want this to be sort of moody, and I want to use some golds. I actually have some gold gouache that I want to use, which I think it would be really cool. So I'm going to start with some, let's see, I'm going to start with acrylic gouache. Acrylic gouache has an acrylic polymer inside the paint, so when it dries it is permanent. It does not reactivate with water. And I need to put some palette paper down so I don't ruin my palette. Always got some spares laying around somewhere. I missed my palette paper. Just going to put a little bit of this Prussian blue. I'm going to use Prussian blue, and I'm going to use maybe some deep violet and sepia. I'm looking at some of the colors that are in this paint palette reference photo, and I'm looking at the bottom row in the center, the gold, and that violet next to it. I'm just really enjoying that sort of, kind of looks like a Mars violet color. I need to add something that's got a little bit of warmth to it. I don't have too many colors in acrylic gouache, but I do have a wine red. That's pretty nice. I'll try that one. All right. So I'll put my palette over here so you can see. And I'm going to move myself out of the way. I'll just shrink myself down here. That way you can see me mixing colors as well. Okay. Where's my brushes? All right, I've got my jar of water. So I'm going to start with the blue. I'm going to make it really runny. And add some of that sepia, a little bit of violet, and a little bit of the wine red. I'm going to turn it this way because I want to get a clean line. I'm just dropping some more purple. It's a little too purple. Let's make it more blue. If you want it to spread and not get any hard lines, you need to wet the paper first. I was not wetting the paper first on that first pass. I was applying it straight to dry paper. Now we can just let that run. I think I hear my dog outside of my bedroom door. It's thundering and she's kind of scared. Although my husband's out there with her, so I don't know why she just doesn't go hang out with him. This is very interesting. I like this. All right, I'm gonna move it to the right side up again. I think I want to introduce a little bit of green, I think. Not like green, but like a teal. Now I'm applying this really watered down because I want it to be kind of like a watercolor, just real drippy. Oh no! You know what? I'm gonna leave it there. That little spot. We'll see what it does. This is all about experimenting, right? I'm gonna let that side dry. I think I want to do something very pale around the edges, but I don't want it to bleed into that section, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna wet this section here. Ooh, that's fun. I'll put a little bit of this wine red color. I don't know why it looks like a brain hemorrhage now. Okay, let's do something really bright. So the palette is sort of this off-white, kind of beigey color. I've got this ash rose color and a beige. I think I like the beige better. Yep, our little water droplets still just chilling. So there's a lot of warm tones in the palette. There's lots of paint splatter. So we'll bring out a little bit of yellow ochre. And let's get a new brush. I want something a little bit more on the square side. I think we'll use this guy. I hear you, Pebbles, trying to come in here. My poor dog. Oh, and just so you know, I am painting on Fabriano Artistico hot pressed watercolor paper. This is very nice watercolor paper. It's archival and it is also acid free, and it's very smooth. It's very nice to paint on if you like a smooth surface like I do for gouache. All right, watering down some of this beige. Man, I can really hear the wind just whipping outside. Hope the power doesn't go off. If it does, I apologize. And what am I apologizing for? I can't control the weather. But, you know. I don't like that bright green. Let's cool that down a little bit. Oop, just saw some lightning. I don't think we're going to be able to finish this today. We'll get this underpainting pretty much solidified with the acrylic gouache, and we will go over the rest of it with traditional gouache next week. So I'm going to paint for another few minutes yet, because I just want to get a nice background. Essentially, I want to go over all of this. I don't know how he painted as far as his like technique, but if you watch that little video of him drawing, you know, he was definitely freehanding it, and it was really cool. Now I don't want to get too crazy with colors. I kind of want to keep this somewhat of a limited palette. Just putting some more water because I just want it to really kind of bleed and run. I'm not really thinking too much about, like I'm trying to be conscious about the composition of colors. And I can definitely see how that does take a great concentration. You know, what kind of a message do you want to put out with your color palette or things like that? I'm not good at that sort of thing, but this is definitely fun. It's very relaxing. You know, I don't feel like I have to really think about what I'm doing. Which is nice. I'm trying to draw inspiration from this paint palette and take colors that I see. This is very fun. Let's see. Couldn't quite get those lines to blend out, but I actually kind of like those lines, how they kind of dried. You know what? I'm gonna also get some. Oh, do I want to add black to this? Probably not. I'm trying to get a balance of colors, balance of values. I don't know that I'm reaching my inner Kandinsky by putting things in a box, as I always try to do. Kind of want to get like a nice muted sort of pinky brown. I think I'm gonna have to get off of here pretty soon. My poor dog is just scratching at the door. I would let her in, but she's very noisy. Well, I think that is going to be enough for this evening. I think I do want to put a little bit of yellow down. Got this kind of nice cream yellow color here. I'm going to put it right here. Maybe I'll mix a little bit of, I want more of an orange up there, I think. We'll see. Maybe I'll leave that blank. Well, I hope you enjoyed the little fun facts that I shared with you tonight. I know I didn't do a whole lot of talking. I hope that you kind of had some fun just playing along with me and just seeing, just seeing me branch out into doing something completely different than what I'm used to doing. And I'm going to continue this next week. So next Tuesday, which is what is today? Today's the 12th. So next Tuesday, which is the 19th, we'll continue this painting, and we're going to do 7 o'clock again. So yeah, so I'll see you next week. If you have any questions or any kind of, if you want to share what you're working on, I would love to see it, but you can always email me, jhillfineart@gmail.com. And I also do one-on-one lessons, virtual or in person if you're local to Southeast Georgia in the Camden County area or Glenn County. So anyways, I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.